Well, we have to keep up with the news, the weather, and the sports. It's all, we've got so much to talk about today. I mean, pages and pages and notes and things and updates and corrections and plugs and things and such. But I want to start with the weather. I got good news. This is why I'm in a good mood, especially for having just watched a lot of bad wrestling. I'm in a good mood, at least here in the greater Louisville metropolitan area. We're going to have a pretty good winter. This is just in. I got the woolly worm weather report. We're going to have a fairly severe start, but it'll be brief, a very mild midsection through the winter, and then a kick in the ass right at the end. But most of it is going to be mild and not severe.
I'm waiting for the joke. Is there a joke here?
I'm telling you. Now, this is in the greater Kentuckiana area here. See, the greater metropolitan Louisville area, for those of you around the world, is in Kentucky, but we're right on the Ohio River, and southern Indiana is right on the other side of the river, and that's part of the metropolitan area, so we call it Kentuckiana, Kentucky and Indiana, because they started calling it Indy-Yucky, but that didn't really sound too good. So this is just the woolly worm weather report for this area. You'll have to consult your local worms for your particular forecast, wherever you may be in the country and around the world. I assume they have worldwide woolly worms, don't they?
I don't know.
What is your woolly? Have you seen one yet? What do they say up there?
What is this woolly worm? I don't know.
What are you not understanding the words that are coming out of my mouth? Have you seen a woolly worm yet, so you know what your winter's going to be like?
I don't even know what a woolly worm is. I can't tell if you're talking about an actual animal or bug or some sort of person on TV. This is like some sort of southern nickname for the weatherman.
No, you don't. Obviously, you do not understand. Brian, last, I've got to lead you through life by the nose. No wonder you've chosen me to be your mentor and your guiding light, like Captain Lou.
There's Groundhog Day up here. Is this what you have in Louisville? Instead of Groundhog Day, you have Woolly Worm Wednesday or something?
No, the groundhog predicts whether it's the end of... It's a whole different kind of prediction. It predicts whether it's the end of the winter or not, or 6 more weeks of winter if it goes back in. Actually, most time it goes back in because all those fucking weirdos, those top hats, scare the shit out of that poor little fucking groundhog. But no, did your parents never teach you anything? When it gets this time of year, you go out and you'll start seeing your woolly worms. And a woolly worm is, a couple of inches long, although they do get a little bigger sometimes, especially if they've been eating good. And it's called a woolly worm because it's all fuzzy. It's not a caterpillar. It's about as big.
That was my next question. Are you talking about a caterpillar?
No, it's about as big around as my thumb and it's about as long as my thumb. And the coloration of the woolly worm, because it's all covered with fur, and you can't really tell unless it's moving which end is which. It's got to be moving in a direction so you know what's the front and which is the back, but nevertheless, I digress. The point is, it's all furry. It's a woolly worm. And, as a matter of fact, that old poem when you were a kid, Fuzzy Wuzzy was a worm, a little worm was he. He crawled upon the railroad tracks, the train he did not see. Fuzzy Wuzzy. Anyway, nevertheless, Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he?
I never heard that little poem.
But anyway, you tell by the coloration of the fur on the woolly worm as to how severe your winter is going to be. If it's all black, you're going to start out with snow and sleet and ice and blizzards, and it's going to be hard. It ain't going to be a fit winter out for man nor beast. If it's all the light brown color, then that means it's going to be an easy winter, that it's not going to be hard on the livestock and the kinfolks and the crops. And if it's black at the start and light at the end, that means hard start, but an easy finish. But this woolly worm had a little black band on the front of him and a little black band on the back of him, and he was mostly brown in the middle, which indicates that we're going to get hit with a wallop at the start of the winter, but then we're going to cruise on through where it's not going to be bad, and then we're going to have one taste of bad shit at the end. Did your mother never explain to you how to predict? Next, you'll be saying that you don't know how to look at the maple tree leaves turning over and tell that it's going to rain.
I didn't have many conversations about bugs with my parents.
Well, maybe that's what's wrong with you.
Well, there it is. Weather the Weather with Jim Cornette, or Cornette's Farmer's Almanac, whatever you want to call this segment here.
Well, we know when we live out here in the rural areas, we've got to subsist off the fat of the land. And we got to know these signs and these things for when the nor'easters blow up and the weather turns threatening and something wicked this way comes. You understand what I'm talking about here, don't you?
What if you have a heel worm? I mean, have any of these worms ever been incorrect in their diagnosis of the upcoming weather?
That is completely preposterous. These worms have no reason to lie to us. They're here to perform a service. There is no reason if we take and as a matter of fact,
this is so ridiculous.
What are you talking about? that these worms would in some way lead us down the wayward path and lie to us?
Well, maybe not intentionally. Maybe not intentionally.
No. Well, they don't do this. It's a thing. It's what's nature has given them. It's a gift that they bring to us, the human of the world, and it's why we don't kill the woolly worm, because the woolly worm doesn't bite and the woolly worm doesn't hurt you. The woolly worm just brings you the news and then goes off into woolly land. So he was in my garage, and why are you laughing? He was in my garage, and I scooped him up on a piece of cardboard so I wouldn't hurt the little thing, and I carried him outside, and I flipped him into the bushes so that he could.
Oh yeah, that won't hurt him.
Well, no, I don't mean I threw him from a goddamn height of 10 feet or whatever. I flipped him off the cardboard onto the ground so he could crawl up under the bushes and make a winter home instead of being in the garage where I'll run over him. And then that would be terrible.
But based on what you're saying, if I'm going to try to make some sense out of this ludicrous
that's because
discussion here.
I'm imagining Travis's artwork, and I'm thinking that now we've got the clip as Jim Cornette on woolly worms, because obviously you can't be alone in the world in your ignorance of this important meteorological fucking forecasting tool.
Well, I think we found the topic for the first Jim Cornette kids book. But what I was going to say is, if the worm is indoors, is the forecast accurate? I can understand you having this voodoo way of analyzing the weather if you see him out in the dirt, but if he's in the garage, is that the same thing?
What do you think? He puts on different fur to come in the garage? Like the wool.
How long has he been in the garage? You don't know.
No, he just came in.
You saw him come in?
I didn't watch him come in, but he wasn't in the place that he was even an hour beforehand. They don't move too fast. But the point is, he's not been living in that particular spot that he was in. He came in from outside because the door was open, because it was the middle of broad daytime. And he came to deliver the news that I needed to know as the owner of the property that he's currently inhabiting. And then I took him back outside where he can make a home free, where the predators won't get him.
Sounds like you need an exterminator to lay down some traps.
Like he's going to be a different fucking color when he comes in the house. Like, I got to come in the house. I got to put on my house fucking fur.
I scooped him up on some cardboard so I wouldn't hurt him, and then I threw him into the bushes.
I said I flipped him off.
You flipped him. You flipped him off.
I didn't backdrop the goddamn. All right.